On the orbital station Lysandra Arc, violence was rare. Not because it was peaceful, but because everything important was already controlled. Law, trade, access, movement, even grief had a schedule. In one of the lower residential sectors lived a man named Jonas Keller. No rank, no affiliation, no political leverage, just a father. And his daughter, Elin, who had been transferred into the station's medical dependency program after an off-world accident. The system called her condition long-term care subject. Jonas called it something else. Still here. Scene 2. The policy change that changed nothing at first. The station administration issued a routine update, reduced civilian resource allocation, restructuring of dependent care units, relocation of non-essential family units. Nobody panicked, because on stations like this, everything sounded temporary. Jonas read the notice twice, then folded it and placed it beside Ellen's bed. She asked softly, "Are we moving again?" Jonas smiled. "I don't know yet." She nodded like that was normal, because for them, uncertainty had become routine. Scene 3. The first quiet injury. 2 days later, Ellen's care allocation was reduced. Not dramatically, not violently, just quietly. One less treatment cycle, one delayed supply order, one missing therapy session. Small things. The kind of small things systems rely on to avoid accountability. Jonas didn't complain. He simply visited the administrative desk, waited in line, spoke politely, and asked for correction. The clerk didn't even look at him properly. "Resource adjustment is final." Jonas nodded. "Can you review it?" A sigh. "No, that was it. End of conversation." Or so they thought. Scene 4. The moment respect should have been earned. Jonas returned to Elin. She smiled when she saw him. "Did they fix it?" A pause. Jonas sat down beside her bed, and for a moment, didn't answer. Not because he was angry, but because he was deciding how to explain something a child should never have to understand. Then he said softly, "They said no." Elin blinked. "Oh." Then, after a moment, "Will I still get better?" Jonas looked at her, and answered honestly, "I don't know." That was the first crack. Not in the system. In him. Scene 5. The system underestimates quiet people. What the station didn't know. Jonas Keller used to be part of civil stabilization oversight operations during off-world collapses. Not military. Not enforcement. But the people who arrived after disasters to decide. Who still gets care when everything runs out. He had signed too many forms that decided survival probability. He had once believed systems could be fair if calibrated correctly. Then he stopped believing that, and left, because he had seen what happens when fairness is reduced to logistics. Scene 6. The first emotional disruption. The next day, Jonas didn't argue again. Instead, he began visiting other dependency families. Quietly, sitting with them, listening, not organizing, not rallying, just remembering names. A nurse asked him, "Are you building a complaint group?" Jonas shook his head. "No." "What then?" He paused, then said, "I'm making sure people are not invisible before they are reduced further." That sentence spread faster than any protest ever could, because it didn't accuse anyone. It simply described reality. Scene 7. The station notices something wrong. Reports began to appear. Increased emotional distress in administrative staff. Repeated policy reconsideration requests. Caregivers refusing automated cutoff schedules. Unexpected human overrides in minor allocations. Nothing violent. Nothing illegal. Just conscience reactivation. A supervisor frowned. "What is causing this?" Another replied, "That father in Sector 14. "Who?" "The one who doesn't argue." Scene 8. The quiet confrontation. Jonas was called in. Not arrested. Not threatened. Just requested. A station administrator met him. "We need you to stop interfering with operational efficiency." Jonas asked, "Is caring for children interference?" A pause. "We are managing limited resources." Jonas nodded. "I understand." Then added, "But I think you've stopped seeing what those words mean." The administrator frowned. "This is policy." Jonas replied quietly, "And policy is where empathy goes when no one watches it anymore." Silence. Not hostile. Just uncomfortable. Scene 9. The emotional collapse of authority. Ellen's condition worsened slightly. Not dramatically. Just enough that Jonas noticed before systems flagged it. He sat beside her bed longer that night. She asked, "Are they mad at you?" Jonas smiled softly. "No. Why not?" A pause. Then, "Because I didn't fight them." Elin frowned. "Then what did you do?" Jonas looked at her for a long moment, then said, "I reminded them that decisions still have faces attached to them." She didn't fully understand, but she held his hand tighter. Scene 10. The shift in the station. Something unexpected happened over the next week. Policies began quietly changing, not officially reversed, but softened, adjusted, human-reviewed. A memo circulated. Reassess dependency classification protocols for emotional impact bias. No one admitted why, but everyone knew. Because whenever Jonas appeared in a room, people stopped speaking in pure systems language. They started speaking like humans again, and that was more disruptive than any protest. Final scene. Respect without victory. Months later, Elin's treatment stabilized. Not because of rebellion, not because of authority pressure, but because enough people refused to treat her situation as a line item. A nurse later said, "He never raised his voice. He never threatened anyone. He just made it impossible to pretend we weren't deciding on real lives." Jonas stood outside the station viewport that night, watching ships pass. Elin beside him, asleep again. A junior administrator approached quietly. "We wanted to acknowledge your influence on recent policy adjustments." Jonas didn't turn. "That wasn't my intention." "I know." A pause. Then softly, "But it changed things." Jonas finally spoke. "Good." The administrator hesitated. "You could have demanded change." Jonas shook his head. "No." A longer pause. Then, "Demanding change lets people stay the same until forced. I wanted them to notice first." The administrator lowered their gaze. "They did." Jonas nodded once. That was all. No celebration. No revenge. No victory speech. Just quiet respect earned not through force, but through the uncomfortable realization that empathy had been missing from the system for a long time.